Do you guys remember what it was like to leave the house, to play gigs, to play music with other people, and not just with band in a box? Well, neither do I. And that's why I'm basically going through all of my gear and pulling it out and doing all these reviews that I've been meaning to do for a while, in hopes that someday I can actually put my horn in the case and go out and play with some other people. Now, if you're watching this in the future, this was recorded during the great virus of 2020. We've all basically been stuck in our houses for about a month now. But I figure, why not pass the time fueling your gear addiction and reviewing yet another fantastic mouthpiece. So today's review is going to be all about the Ted Klum Florida model hard rubber tenor saxophone mouthpiece. Let's get into it. I bought this mouthpiece about 2 years ago. It was my main piece for quite some time, and I can honestly say that this is one of the best mouthpieces that I've ever owned in my entire life as a saxophonist. So this mouthpiece is based off of the famous Florida model Otto tone edge mouthpiece that was made in the late 1960s into the early to mid 1970s. And in the saxophone world, when it comes to remaking these storied mouthpieces of the past, as far as hard rubber mouthpieces go, all the love goes to the slant signature Otto. And while I do love that mouthpiece, and I love so many of the companies that are remaking that mouthpiece, I am so happy that the Florida model got some love. Because this mouthpiece is a little bit different than those slant signature copies. What I find is that you can push these mouthpieces a little bit harder, and they give you just a little bit more brightness when you need it, while still maintaining that amazing dark buttery tone that we all know and love from those vintage Otto pieces. And this one just happens to be made by one of the best mouthpiece makers the world has ever known, Ted Klum. And he actually modeled this after an original Florida model tone edge piece that was one of his favorite mouthpieces. So you're going to get a lot of that vintage charm, but without the $1,000 to $1,500 price tag that you normally see on those. So before we talk about the actual playing characteristics of the piece, let's do our patent pending close up and personal look at this mouthpiece. All right, time for our up close and personal look at this piece. So you can see the markings on the top, Florida model, made in USA. Ted Klum's logo, which is currently upside down. There we go. All right, let's look at the important parts of this piece. So the things I really love about it, the table and the rails are absolutely amazing. And that just goes to show you the care with which this is hand finished. I mean, look at how perfect those rails and tip rail are. They're immaculate. And that's one thing that I just truly appreciate about the craftsmanship that these mouthpieces are made with. A lot of care goes into these, clearly. Now you can kind of already see the shape of the baffle. Try to get that in the light as much as possible. Hopefully you can see that. There's only so much I can do on camera. Let's take a look inside at the chamber. You can see not very much resistance in there. Sometimes you see mouthpieces with the horseshoe-shaped chamber. Not in this. It is a straight shot and a very medium chamber inside this thing. So the last thing I'd like to look at is the facing curve of this particular mouthpiece. And again, I'm trying to get it to come across on camera as much as I possibly can. And there you have it. That is the up close and personal look at the Ted Klum Florida model. All right, so there you have it, all the bells and whistles. You got to see it nice and up close. Now let's talk about how this thing actually plays. So I have owned and tried so many of those slant signature copies, and I love them. But I was looking for something that I could push a little bit harder, that would give me a little bit more edge, help me cut through the ensemble a little bit more. And when I tried this mouthpiece, it was basically that exact thing, the thing that I had been looking for a number of years. Now, before I interject this video with some clips of myself playing, let me tell you the setup that I'm using. This particular one is a 7-star tip opening, and I am using a Rico H ligature with a D'Addario Jazz Select 3 hard filed reed, and that is all being played through my Ishimori Woodstone tenor saxophone. So this is really going to be a mouthpiece that's at home in the jazz setting. Don't think you're going to want to use this mouthpiece if you're playing with a screaming GB band, or if you're playing Tower of Power tunes or whatever. You might be able to do that, but I definitely can't. This is going to be at home playing jazz standards or modern jazz stuff. I think that's where this piece really shines. One of the things I love the most about this mouthpiece is its range. You can play the softest, prettiest ballad at a whisper, kind of like this. Or you can really push this mouthpiece to its limits by playing some pretty loud and edgy music that's really going to fill up the room, and it has no problem with that either. Kind of like this. As I mentioned before, it really works in every register of the saxophone, and I find that it has this nice, round, dark tone down low, and then it starts to give me a little bit of that edge that I'm looking for when I start to push it, getting up into the palm keys and into the altissimo register. One of the other things that I totally love about this mouthpiece is that I feel like I can do whatever I want articulation-wise. Everything from the softest, most pointed articulations all the way to when I want to add a lot of oomph to the notes and really articulate on the harder end of the spectrum. I'm totally confident that with the right reed, this thing is going to speak at whatever dynamic and whatever strength I would like to use in my articulation. So for most of the situations that I find myself in, this mouthpiece is a dream. It really just performs fantastically. And the only reason that this is not my main mouthpiece anymore is because I do find myself in a lot of situations where if I were using this piece, I'd be overblowing it. Meaning that I don't always have the best sound reinforcement, and I'm having to play at the top of my volume range without any kind of microphone or amplification, and I'm just overblowing this a little bit when I get to that point. Now, I think if I purchased this in a larger tip opening, like an 8 or a 9, I think it might be able to handle those situations that I'm in. But for right now, I only own the 7-star, but that might change in the future. I might try to get my hands on a larger tip opening of this particular model. Now, this mouthpiece is expensive as far as mouthpieces go. It's about $450 for the one that I'm currently holding in my hands right now. But if you really think about it, it's not that expensive. We already mentioned if you did want to go back and buy one of these tone edge mouthpieces from Otto, probably be upwards of $1,000. So if you think about it in those terms, it's really not that expensive. Plus, think about what you're getting. Ted Klum actually sits down with each one of these mouthpieces and hand finishes them. So really, that's what you're paying for. You're paying for somebody with decades and decades and decades of experience building mouthpieces to really produce a product that you can use straight out of the box without having to send it to a refacer or anything like that. So $450, it's kind of a high price when you first think about it, but if you're a working musician and you make money playing music, it's really not that much to pay for a piece of this caliber. Ted actually also makes these in these really cool marbled designs. So if you're looking for something that's a little bit more out there, a little bit more exciting to look at, you could definitely get those models as well. And he also claims that those marbled pieces are a little bit darker than the regular plain old hard rubber pieces. So that could be something to think about too. If you like this piece, but you want it a tiny little bit darker, that could be a good direction to go. So that about does it for my review of this mouthpiece. If you've got any further questions about this particular piece, definitely leave them in the comments below. I'll make sure I read all of those and get back to you. Also, let me know if you already own one of these or any of Ted's other mouthpieces and what you think about his work. I think it's top notch, and I can very, very highly recommend this mouthpiece to everybody out there. Honestly, it's like as close to a 10 out of 10 as I could possibly give any mouthpiece. This is really quality craftsmanship, and you won't be sorry if you buy one of these. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this review useful and informative, please give me a like. And if you really liked it, you can subscribe and turn on notifications to this channel so you can get lots more videos like this. We are here to support your saxophone gear habit as much as we possibly can. Let me know what you would like to see reviewed on the channel, and I will try to make that happen. And most of all, have a great day, everybody. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.